and then we should be all good. You can't see the chat box, right? So let me see. That's good. Okay, I'm going to click go in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Howdy. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Nearly the end of February, nearly our bonus day for the year. Please, I remember to activate the chat this time, so please drop in the chat where you're dialing in from today. You have people from both coasts of Canada as your host today. I'm dialing in from Vancouver. And Seb, where are you calling from?
Based out of Montreal, Mike.
Nice. How's the weather today? So this is the downside of doing a webinar with a British person. We have to talk about the weather before we can progress.
Nice. It's cold, it's sunny, and there's a lot of snow. That's our
Nice.
current day. How about you?
We're scheduled for snow this afternoon. Probably about half a centimeter, but this entire city loses its mind when there's a little bit of snow. I'm seeing Tiffany in California, Chaylin from Texas. Both of you, actually, Amelia, we're visiting your respective Parks and Rec Society trade shows. Chaylin will be at Traps in Galveston. I think my team are there already. Tiffany in California. Some of my team are en route to Palm Springs right now. So do swing by and say hello. Lancaster, California, Concord, Colorado, Illinois. Vivian from Vancouver, what's up? I'm just over the water in North Van. How's it going? Welcome. Illinois, Hawaii. Darren, most glamorous respondent so far. Nice to see you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Well, I'm seeing we've got 130 people joined so far. That number's slowly ticking up, but I think that's enough people to get going. So all that's left for me to do is say thanks for joining us and welcome. Today we're doing a presentation on how to recruit and retain Gen Z employees, a study specifically designed for Parks and Recreation. We are, let me just sort slides out. And before I get going, just a few housekeeping points. So all of you attending are automatically muted. If there's background noise at your end, don't worry about it. We can't hear it. Audio is available by computer, as I'm sure most of you are, but also by phone. If your connection drops out and you want to follow, you can find a phone number to dial in the email that you got from Zoom. If you have questions during proceedings today, please ask away, but please use the question and answer function. That will help me and Seb balance it, and we can keep the chat for chat and questions for questions come back later. The chat, of course, will be open. It's already there. I can see lots of people dropping in. Thanks so much for participating so far. And the number one question I always get asked by people both in and after the webinar is, yes, we will be sending the recording via email. Within a few business days, you'll get an email with a link to the recording, the slides, a link to share this with people in your network if that's what you would like to do, just to keep this content going, and you can learn more from it. A little bit about the presentation and us today. Gen Z, a lot of people are hiring Gen Z in Parks and Recreation positions these days, and we feel they present a new set of challenges that maybe people in the hiring positions are not so familiar with. So we conducted a survey. I'll talk more about that in just a second. I'm here today as the Director of Demand Gen for Amelia. I work in marketing. I used to work in tourism. I moved to Canada, like 5 years ago now. I come from a tech marketing background, but I really enjoy that I work for a software company that works for Parks and Rec people. I see the work that you guys do, the webinars that we do with Chris Noons and Tom and the Reckless people. I feel very privileged to be speaking to people who do such good in the world today. Seb, what about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I'm very glad to be here today. My name is Sebastian Noteri. I am the head of sales and marketing at Evolia. Very excited about the topic here, which is definitely right in the core of our current business and landscape. Amelia and Evolia have been great partners for a bit of time, and I've gotten to know Mike on a more regular basis. And I'm very, very ecstatic to be here with you today and have the opportunity to discuss about the findings that you've done throughout the surveys you've completed, and to provide some additional background around how tough recruiting can be.
Absolutely. So just quickly, a couple words about Amelia before we kick off. So Amelia, some of you may know, we're on a mission to bring better tech to the activity recreation industry. We're built with a human-first approach, right? Our Smart Rec platform empowers businesses, community organizations, parks and rec agencies to make offering, managing, selling activities online as easy as it can be, right? We have front office stuff, shopping cart, online registration. We have a back office to help everything manage. We can run it all and be the center of the catalyst for your growth, for your community engagement. Do you have a quick couple lines about Evolia there, Seb?
Yeah, absolutely. Very quickly. Obviously, we saw an immediate fit between Evolia and Emilia in terms of partnership, very complementary offering. Evolia is all about enabling business to recruit and manage the workforce in one place. So it's a centralized system that allows you to find the people that you need and actually appoint them on the schedule, on the time and attendance that you need, with the same mindset that Emilia had. Make it very human-centric, easy to use, and accessible to everyone.
Happy days. And I promise you that is it about our platforms from here on out. It's all about juicy information about Gen Z and how to manage that problem in your org. If you do want to learn more about Parks and Rec resources, we have amelia.com/library. All our previous webinars with the Parks and Rec experts we've had, ebooks, research reports, etc. You can find them all there. But today's research, okay? Why did we do a piece of research into Gen Z? So we at Amelia, we routinely hear that recruitment and retention is one of the biggest challenges for Parks and Rec. If you were in our webinar last month with Chris and the Reckless podcast, recruitment retention is a top concern for Parks and Rec professionals. 40% of the directors that we asked for their input ranked it as their #1 concern. I think Jay, the deputy director, one of the podcasts said, even though he is in a college town where like recruitment is not an issue for him, retention and keeping those employees happy and engaging with them is a #1 priority for him. So even when like finding those people is not important, employee engagement and managing and learning to deal with that is top of mind. Secondly, I really feel that in wider society right now, Gen Z in the workplace is a hot topic across various media outlets. I see stuff in the newspaper, stuff comes across my algorithms, my feeds a lot as a millennial manager. All these buzzwords like quiet quitting, the great resignation, rage applying, quiet hiring, quiet fire, all bunch of nonsense buzzwords everywhere. And to be honest, I find it really hard to get some actual solid information around this cohort. And finally, like as demographics are shifting, Gen Z are aging up into the workforce. What that actually looks like, the economic reality there is very fluid. The world is changing. Things people took for granted are no longer the case. The pandemic changed people's attitudes towards this, the gig economy, macroeconomic conditions. There's a lot, right? There's a lot of swirling stuff going on, and it can be a lot to take in. So we undertook this study with one goal in mind. We wanted to ask them, what is important to you? What are you looking for in work? And then to take that information, asking Gen Z people directly, and to package it in a way to help you guys, Parks and Rec professionals, who are a great source of early career opportunities, help you guys make the best decisions you can in employing those people. A reminder, if you have any questions along the way, please drop them in the chat. I'll either answer them in the question and answer. If they're relevant, I'll answer them immediately. If not, I will come back to them. So a bit of information about how we did the study. We did this survey in winter of 2024. I managed to pay for all the survey responses in the last dregs of my 2023 budget to bring this to you today in 2024. And we surveyed exclusively 18 to 25-year-olds using SurveyMonkey. We gathered respondents from across the United States, all 50 states, balanced by population, and we received 267 individual submissions. So a reasonable data size. This is not just like a little quiz. We asked like 50 people. There's I believe, a statistically significant sample here. And then an overview of the sections. So the first section that we're going to cover, what are Gen Z people really looking for? Is it true that they'll only get out of bed for work that will save the planet? Is remote work a non-negotiable for them? I think the answers you'll find in this section are pretty interesting. Section 2, how do they look for work? What's the best thing that you can do as an employer of Gen Z talent to get your job posting noticed by them, to get people applying for your positions? Section 3, how does providing young people with the right tools and processes affect their happiness and enjoyment of the work that they do? So here we're going to try and tie it back to the operational piece. Does running your facility or agency better? Does that lead to better retention? What modern tools can help you run it well in that fashion? And then section 4, what are the attitudes towards seasonal and flexible work? Something that I think is especially relevant for Parks and Rec, and something that you guys are in an interesting position with regards to. So about to kick on with section 1. Seb, do you have anything to add at this point?
Oh, I find it's going to be very interesting to look at this, and I love how you segmented into what park and recs are for the people that are getting most probably their first job, second jobs at an early stage. Definitely looking forward to dig into this.
Nice. So for section one, we started off just asking you a little bit about the employment status of our sample. We want to know who we're asking what of. And then we segued into ask more questions about what they're looking for in work at the early stages of their career. So this is a little question to ask about people's current employment status is the first question in the survey. We asked people, are they employed, full-time, part-time, unemployed, a student, or none of the above? Over half of our sample of 18 to 25-year-olds classify themselves as full-time employed, and only 16% as a student. This is interesting. This shows that actually students are a little underrepresented in this sample. 30% of 18 to 24-year-olds nationally are in college, apparently. So it may be a little bit skewed, or it might be because this is notably a survey about employment. People who are student and part-time selected the part-time option. Just a little asterisk on the methodology there. But what's really interesting is when you ask the same group of people what they're looking for, less than half of people are looking for full-time work, right? Back here, over half of people have full-time work. This slide, less than half of people want full-time work. More people have full-time work than want it. What's going on here? You think it's work-life balance, flexibility, maybe? Many people, 30%, that's a significant amount, want to only work part-time. And then if you combine those bottom two bars, the blue one and the yellow one, that's a total of nearly 60% who are open to part-time work, which I think is really good for Parks and Rec and the positions that you guys can offer this demographic. Comparing with the last question, student unemployed mean that this is not a like for like with the last question, but it shows where people's heads are at when it comes to looking for work in 2024. Our next question, and I think this one's really interesting. What is your main motivation for work? Now, when you ask people what is their main number one motivation for work, no surprises, 72% are looking for extra income. So far, so uncontroversial. Gen Z want to get paid like everybody else. This lines up with one of the key narratives around Gen Z, I think, and that's around the economy and income. Economically speaking, things are a little bit precarious. Prioritizing money is important. Turns out, like from another study I looked at researching this, turns out nearly half of Gen Zs are juggling multiple side hustles to make money. So it makes sense that this is their primary factor, right? There's going to be an opportunity cost to deploying their time in other areas that they may be generating income. Second up, the second factor, over half are looking to gain significant work experience. I see this as an investment in themselves here that's showing up, right? Again, tying back to the economic reality, there's an acknowledgement that experience is important and they're looking to work to provide it. I got some stats from Forbes to help illustrate this side a little bit more. 78% of Gen Z fear that they lack the skills to advance in their career. 58% of Gen Z worry that their skills are already outdated. And they log 50% more hours watching educational content that millennials did at their age. But 74% of those people think that they could better learn skills at a new job. So people are sat, they're trying to skill up, they're trying to train, they want to be ready for the workforce. And I think that they believe that getting a job is the best way to do that. I think this ties as well, like there are many stories about remote first employees being passed over for growth in the pandemic. The pandemic has led people to realize that you can teach yourself a lot of stuff, but that mentorship, that like real experience and like working alongside a team is really beneficial in the early stages of career. Oh, sorry, I hadn't finished that slide yet. Where was I? So yeah, the yellow bar, 39% work-life balance. That might be lower than you think, but still nearly 4 out of 10 people say that work-life balance is their main motivation for work. They want to find a job that fits that. And then exploring different careers and supporting education are bringing up the rear. So in this age group, you can kind of see that like that income and the getting work experience, like launching their career is super important. Seb, anything to add before we wrap up on this section?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the comment that you made, Mike, earlier on, which I really like, is about the fact that Gen Zs are investing in themselves. It is a true fact. It's a reality. This is where continuous learning is so important. When you're at an early age of your career, you're basically building the foundations. In your data, you were alluding to the fact that there were not that many students that did complete the survey, maybe because they completed themselves or allocated themselves as part-time. But the reality is between 18 and 25, you're still in that learning curve.
Yeah.
And that investment in yourself is key. And part of the things that we're going to be addressing later on around obviously what's important around retention and attraction, having the ability to provide employees with a great learning capability, a learning library, getting to know more information is super, super important. So that is something that is very important to keep in mind when people are doing something. The other part is, and I think this is something that we are hearing more currently, is people don't want to live to work. They want to work to live. That's a reality. So they're in to cash in. What extra can they get? This is really where we can go a little bit more in depth when we're talking to the employees that we have in our premises as Parks and Recs. When you're thinking, what else can we give them? They have a salary, they have specific conditions. What is important for them? And at the end of the day, the concept of full-time, part-time, at Evolia, we've tried to break this for since the beginning a little bit, thinking about different shifts that you want to do. Talking about, shift work rather than talking about part-time and full-time. Because
Yeah.
what does part-time really mean? How does it define part-time within a week? Is it 40 hours sporadically? Is it 40 hours in a company and 40 hours in another company? There's such a big difference between one place and another.
Yeah, in my early career, I can remember working in service jobs where you would have people who were not technically full time, but would have their like 30 hours a week, say that they were like, this is what I want. I don't want to work more. I definitely don't want to work less. And technically they're part time, but they're still as much of a part of the furniture, the machine as everyone else. Like it's really more fluid. You mentioned something else that take me back to a previous webinar that we've done. I think like there's this sense that I think there's a feeling that Gen Z are less willing to like put in the hours in the entry level positions than maybe previous generations were. That like this they're going places, they need to hurry up, they need to maximize their income as quickly as possible, and they want to get this experience, but they don't want to hang around. And I'm wondering if there needs to be a recalibration of the way that these positions are framed for this generation. As I'm talking, I'm realizing I'm stepping into section 2 a little bit here, but I feel a lot of people, myself included, take those early career steps as like this is a doing my time. I'm gonna like be in this position for a little while, do my time, and then progress up. I think we need to start positioning it more of like, here are the growth opportunities, the soft skills that you can generate from this, rather than just sit down and be quiet, you're young, and do your time, so to speak. So I'll touch on that in just a second more. Anyone have any questions so far of the motivations? I'm going to dive a little bit more in section 2. No. Moving on. So section 2. How to make your positions appealing to Gen Z. How do you go about filling those positions? What should you foreground and how should you tackle job postings in your organization? So first up, great news for Parks and Rec people. Let's establish this early on. Where we ask people, would you consider a short-term contract at this stage in your career? So for example, a summer position, 70% of people said yes. Later on, we'll look at what makes that position appealing. But for now, know that this audience is very much open to seasonal work. This is great news. If you can offer a temporary boost to earnings and an opportunity to develop skills, I think you fit really well within the priorities of this audience. For the next question, I'm just going to pause to explain. There's a lot of data on the next slide. I just want to explain how we ask the question. So to dive a little bit deeper and go a little deeper into how important things are, we asked people about a variety of factors that contribute to their job satisfaction. We asked them about a bunch of stuff. So in the example here, work relationships, how important is it? And we asked them to rank from very unimportant to very important on a 4-point scale. So note that a score of very important is a score of 4, important is a score of 3, and then we added them all together and divided by the total number of responses to get an average for each one. Here you can see the 10 factors that we asked about ranked in order. So again, at the top, compensation is the highest one. Lots of people saying that compensation is the thing they most important to them when it comes to work. Second one, growth and develop. Second thing to notice, sorry, the growth and development here this is ranked much lower than in that previous slide, where it was the second thing. It was income, growth and development, work-life balance. I think the previous question I asked, like, what is the main motivation? In this one, I'm asking people to rank how important things are. It's kind of a more subtle thing. When you do that, you start to see these other factors: work-life balance, work environment, workload balance, creeping ahead of career opportunities for growth. This is exactly as you were saying, Seb, like work to live versus live to work. Says to me, like, I need money, I need to grow my career, but I won't sacrifice everything to do it. Or maybe to put it in a more nuanced way, I want to make sure that as I do this, my well-being is maintained, right? I don't want to like burn out in this early stage of my career. I want to enjoy being young. I think the prevalence of well-being is evident in the third and fourth factors: work environment, workload balance. These are both related to not feeling overwhelmed and to have a positive experience in the workplace. 3.42, 3.41. When presented with more options, there are some things that sneak in above those opportunities for growth and development. Flexible work is more important than a sense of fulfillment, relationships, meaningful work. That's really interesting. I feel I read a lot of stuff that says like Gen Z are purpose driven. They want a job that fulfills their mission, their goals. That's not what I'm seeing from this data that I ask. Flexibility, work-life balance is all in there. Interestingly as well, recognition is least important. Another young person stereotype that maybe is more millennial than Gen Z is those participation trophies, right? Like they don't care. That's the least important thing. Like there's much more important things when it comes to work than getting a pat on the back. Seb, what jumps out to you from this data?
Yeah, I think a little bit of the same. At the end of the day, obviously, money talks. This is such an important factor, and I think it's a subject that's so shy in everyone's life still today. A lot of people and a lot of companies don't necessarily expose the salary that they're going to be paying somebody. And when you think about it, there is a driving factor around that. So salary is one, maybe proximity is another one.
Mm,
This is where, the work-life balance comes into play. How much time do I commute in order to get to my job? Is this
yeah,
going to take me half a day to get there? You don't get paid on the bus, right? You don't get paid as you commuting to your work. So that's another part that I think is undermined a lot of time is, are we always targeting the people that are within a specific area to attract local talent? That's
yeah,
something that strikes to me a lot. And then you're right, the recognition and feedback. I think everybody wants to be valued as a human being. There is an importance being valued, but when you weight it off against the rest,
yep.
suddenly it surprisingly go lower. But when you're asking someone just abruptly, do you like to be valued at your work? Of course I do. But compared to the salary you're making, compared to the work environment, compared to the workload, how is that actually important in your life?
Yeah.
Love to see this here scaling.
Looking at that as well as you mentioned the work relationships. Um, I feel like a recognition and feedback is like positive reinforcement. The flip side of that, like a more toxic working relationship, I feel that would fall under work environment, right? Like if you're in a situation where there's a lot of criticism, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, that's high. So that to me says that like Gen Z people, they don't need to be patted on the back and given gold medals and whatnot, but treat them with respect. You know, that seems important. Um, so on to my next slide, I am going to ask you for a little bit of participation here. So I've posted here a job advert. I honestly can't remember where I got it from. I just searched for lifeguard jobs because I knew that was a decent position that a lot of Gen Zs would be applying to this summer. And I pulled a job advertisement. I think it's from a Canadian Parks and Rec agency. Um, and I want to ask you guys to skim read this and drop in the chat marks out of 10 how good you think this job ad is in terms of a job ad for a lifeguard. So Seb, I'm going to ask you to sort of skim read and share your thoughts a little bit. For those of you watching, have a read, drop a score in the chat when you have an idea, marks out of 10. I'm going to play with the marker pen.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely weigh in. And I also want to say I saw there was a question from Steve, which I find very interesting in the Q&A. So we'll definitely address that very shortly. In the meantime, looking at this, generally speaking, first of all, it is UK based, and I think that you did this on purpose. I can see it's .UK and not Canada.
Oh, nice. There we go.
But that being said, I think there are some interesting factors that are really pushing towards the atmosphere they're talking a lot about how it feels to work there, right? And you're underlining them a lot, but it's fun and safe environment. These are the type of the words or the flash words that we can use and we can hear. It
Oh,
also
I'm
says,
sorry.
hey, no
Hang
worries,
up.
trigger happy suddenly. And then the other part that I find interesting is that they're saying, if you don't have all the qualification, don't worry, apply and we'll help you get there. I find this is interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe the way it is positioned within this might not be as obvious as there is training involved and we will
yeah,
bring
yeah,
you where you need to be. Generally speaking, I find there's a lot of word,
yeah.
maybe lacking a little bit of data.
That's the most common thing that's coming into the chat. So I'm seeing lots of like fives and sixes, a couple of fours, a lot of fluff, wordy. Yeah, Cody, Kristen, I
Mhm.
totally agree. I really feel like I read this and I was like, this is quite obviously a job description, right? This is like it has all of um the styles, the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the traditions, the patterns that you would see in a job description. It's quite clear what it is, but I don't actually think, no mention of salary or flexibility. Exactly, Charlotte, this is my exact next point. So I took this and I scored it against um, the factors that we put on the last slide. So these are the 10 factors ranked in order, and we're checking off like whether or not this ad scores off the things. So there's no mention of compensation or benefits. There's nothing in there that suggests work-life balance. This is a position where people are going to be out, they're going to be semi-active, they're going to be working with people, things that people might choose to be in their life. Sure, there's a nod to the fun and safe environment. There's no workload balance. First line says you must be hardworking and cleaning facilities. That's a big X next to the workload balance for some people, possibly. And then opportunities for growth and development. Seb, I think you clocked this. It says to work as a lifeguard, you'll need to have a lifeguard qualification, but we pride ourselves in developing our people. This is like right in the middle of this big paragraph. So many of you have identified this is a very wordy job ad, right? That to me should be something that is front and center. Like that's a really important thing to showcase to people. Um, and yeah, I just think by taking the information on the last slide and applying it to what you think is like a more traditional job ad, you can see that the things that we do, the sort of rhythms that we put into when we write a job ad, might not actually be doing the job as well as we think. Anything else before I move on there, Seb?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that always comes to mind, and I have a hard time with attention spam. And then if you're looking at today's world, and obviously the Gen Zs are spending a lot of time on reels, I would say, very short
Mm.
movies, very short information, quick imaging, scrolling through information. There is no way that I can glance into this text and really find the key factors that are going to attract me to go and apply for this role. I find that, we this is very clerical. And at the end of the day, if you're thinking about describing what you're offering, maybe bullet points is a lot easier to read through. It needs to be quick. I'm
Yeah,
scrolling through tons of jobs. How is this one actually popping out of the rest?
yeah.
Um, I love everyone's answers. I find it's really, Dorian said, bullet points are our friends. Absolutely. Thank you for acknowledging that as well. I think it's the best way to describe something, especially know the role. You're not hiring a lawyer. You're not hiring. You're looking for a body that is going to show up and do a lifeguard duty,
Yeah,
speak their language.
absolutely. So now we've addressed like the content of the ad. When considering job opportunities, which of the following resources does Gen Z use to search for job openings? Search engines. Of course, everything starts with Google, right? Like people don't even enter websites anymore. They just type their question or the company name or the thing that they want to do into that search bar and let Google's algorithm take them the rest of the way. This means you have to optimize. There is an old adage among marketers that the second page of Google is the best place to hide a body. If you're not on the first page, you might as well not bother. But Google has its own way of presenting specifically job ads that I will come to in just a minute. Second one, just over 50% job boards. I wrote this thinking physical job boards, like notice board thing. And I like this. If this is true, people want to be doing something that maybe aligns with their interests in life or wants to be gaining experience in a setting that they're familiar with. So like it makes sense that a physical board would correlate with that. However, the size of that makes me think that they're talking about Indeed and other like online job boards specifically, and I'm just too old to be writing surveys for Gen Z people anymore. Social media, interestingly, I feel like everyone puts jobs on social media. As someone who markets things, just because people are spending time on social media does not mean that they're looking to conduct transactions or make decisions. I promise you, I promise you that. And then recruitment, I think it's pretty, I don't think it's surprising that 18 to 25-year-olds are not really the high yield clients that recruitment agencies are going to be concentrating their time on. So that's not so surprising. The last factor, personal network. All the job seeking advice that I receive tend to be about mobilizing your personal network, and only a third of people seem to be taking that advice. So I find that a bit interesting. Returning to the online search engine piece, I can't do a show of hands. Drop in the chat if you've seen job postings like this, yes or no, if this is new to you. This is how Google chooses to present job posts. Yes, I'm seeing lots of people like, yep, 100%. So if you format your job, this is just a little tip. If you format your job posting correctly, you don't just slap it up on the website and hope for the best. If you include the right structured data for Google, your job will appear here. And this is a real search that I did on my personal browser. Summer Jobs Vancouver, near Vancouver, BC. It comes up with this stuff. That's where I go when I'm looking for new work, whenever that is. But having it in this nice, clean interface. No, a couple new people, great. I'm really glad to be sharing this with people today. These are job posts that live on people's websites, but if you add code like this to your site, to the actual page, Google will, great, Colleen, this is going to be great. It is free to post on Google Jobs, Mark. You just have to make sure wherever you put this job ad, like be it on your website or whatever, that this information is in the page. I don't expect you to write down the piece of code that I'm sharing with you on the screen right now. This is called structured data. If you yourself search for structured data job postings, Google, it will teach you how to do this. Anyone who builds your web pages, manages your website should be able to implement this for you. And it should be free to post on Google, yes. So again, this is the third question that kind of is asking around the same thing. This is specifically evaluating a specific job opportunity. Certainly different responses here. Growth opportunities way back up in second place. Company culture is not unimportant. I feel here this factor like is a merging of all three of those work-life balance factors that we talked about. Flexibility is a reasonably big deal also. Location seems really low. I find that is probably misinterpreted the question, because I'm pretty sure if you live in Texas and I offer you a job in California, that location is a pretty big factor in you not accepting that work. But high five for survey design. And this is a really interesting point. We want to know how important job reviews from current and former employees are when deciding if it's a place that they want to work or not. These days, there are tons of job sites such as Indeed, Glassdoor, others that will rely on an employee's experience to help other people make decisions about whether they want to work there or not. And basically, if you combine those top two bars, that very important and somewhat important bars, 90% of people are saying that matters to them. So there's an opportunity here to ask yourself, am I using the positive experience of previous employees to make my agency, my organization attractive to other future potential hires? And you can do this across all levels of your org, right? But really, I think the best way to do this is to run a sort of employee review program in the run up to summer hiring season. Simply ask people for honest reviews of their experience. Just make sure the person who asked them is the person they had the most positive experience with during their time there. Maybe the direct manager or someone else in HR department. With just a little bit of effort, you can mobilize a program like this within your organization and start to increase the number of people that are responding to your jobs. And on, I think, a final point about number of people applying to jobs. Last point, we asked people, how often do you check for openings? Nearly 20% of people saying multiple times a day, 30% of people saying daily. So that's over half of people saying they check at least once a day. Sure, that's not surprising for everyone who is like picturing everyone tied to their phone. But I think this is really interesting, because if you're putting your job posting in the right place and you format and you've included information that speaks to people in the way that we're talking about, if you're not seeing results within a day or two, that's a pretty good sign that something's going wrong. Nearly half of the people that you're looking to reach for these positions should be checking every day. Now, sure, if you're application has like a lot of stuff to gather, like a large cover letter, possibly a work sample for some positions, like understandable, wait a few days for people to get that together. But it shouldn't take time for your job to be found, right? If you put it up, people should be starting to see things. If you're not seeing responses, pivot, put it somewhere else, rephrase your job description, like look at what you think could be better to get more people in. Yeah, I think that was really interesting to talk about as well. Any additional thoughts, Seb?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to compliment on some of what you've said. So I've been navigating in the recruitment industry for a long time. I'm a previous Indeed employee, and now I work for another company that supports for recruitment, which is Evolia. And one of the things that you brought up that is so key is your rating, the importance of people actually knowing what you like and what you don't like. I think as a human nature, we tend to put up critics or negative reviews. I go to a restaurant, I have a great experience. I don't think about posting on it unless I'm prompted. And if I go to a restaurant and I have a horrible experience, the first thing I want to do is go on Google Review and post a review. So to your point, your current employees are the best spokespersons of your company. The more information you can provide from somebody that actually works there. So when you have a recruiting site, when you have a career site, use those words. Get those testimonies from some of your employees. Love working at this park and rec because the ambiance is so much fun, the salary is great, love my conditions. You know, I give it 4 stars. We tend, and you're obviously in marketing, and so do I, we tend to use a lot of case studies, client testimonies, but what about our internal client, our employees? It's a great opportunity to put additional thought into this and making sure that you're promoting your company by employee satisfaction.
Yeah, just by quick yes and no in the chat, how many people watching today have some employer brand presence, have like a profile around this? Do you know if you can find reviews of your agency online? Yes or no in the chat. I'm just interested to see where people are at in this journey. No, yes. Yes. Yeah, Glassdoor. Okay, so about 50-50. I feel like about 80% of people knew about the structured data. About 50-50 for this. It's really interesting. I think this is a really quick win. You just got to ask people. The site's there. People can make their own accounts with their own email, and it's fine. Cool. Section 3. Just moving on. No, but I've considered making a video staff to help recruit. I think that would be great, especially, Seb, you mentioned people are on consuming short content and reels. Make this, if you're going to make a video, make it short, make it snappy, make it so people can scroll through. Okay, section 3. We want to talk here about having the right tools for the job. This section, I think, directly relates to workload balance out of that list of 10. How important it is to give your young people what they need to succeed. So my hypothesis here is that people don't want to be carrying around pieces of paper, taking paper attendance lists, getting covered in pool water, carrying around a clipboard. My hypothesis is that there's a low tolerance for this. And I just wanted to investigate that. And like I said, ask people directly what they thought. So the first question, how important is it for you to have access to modern and user-friendly software tools to do your job? 85% of people say the right software is important or very important. So think about it, paper records, filing, copying. I got my first email account age 16, I think, just before entering the workforce. So I don't really remember a time when work was done before email, but it sounds tedious. I can't even comprehend what it would be like before the world of email. Interestingly, this question calls out software, and my younger staff are always coming forward with new tools to get their job done. I'm sure some people on this call have had people in their team coming forward with AI as a potential tool to advance things. There's all sorts of software that people can integrate within their orgs now. 85% of people say that's important, but in the next slide, we dug a little bit more into this. Question 11, do you feel that the right software tools enhance productivity and efficiency at work? 90% of people say it does, and 87% of people feel that software tools enhance their satisfaction at work. So there is a big positive to like being plugged in and being able to work efficiently and using modern tools. Would you be more likely to apply for a job at an org that uses modern tools with work? 82% of people said yes. Obviously, we've talked about productivity, workload balance, happiness. That's a strong factor. I think here it's really interesting This makes me think that there's a growth and development motivation here. Using digital tools is an important skill set for modern employees. In fact, like a lot of the automated CV tools that like screen applicants now are looking for keywords around skills and software tools that people have used to make sure they get people trained. So having access to as many tools and productivity things as possible is a strong positive when it comes to applying for a job. It's possible that like including that on your job advert might be a good idea. This is a great stat. People are ready to adopt these tools. How comfortable are you in learning new software tools and technology? 90% of people are comfortable adopting and learning tools and technology. Bring it on. Show us what you got. Like, give me the tools to make me more productive, happier, and I'm more likely to apply for your job. I'm not going to be afraid of working with these tools, and it's going to be easy to implement, as I will show you on the next slide. Last question. Are you comfortable accessing work systems on your own device? It doesn't seem like it's going to be a high cost. People are very willing to use their own devices. So if you're thinking about bringing in software tools across the organization where maybe previously there weren't, you don't have to worry about huge hardware costs. Like, it's becoming more and more rare, I think, for people to have a work phone and a personal phone. People are very happy to like log into work email and Slack and whatever on their phone. Whatever tools you have, people will just bring it into their digital life and take it from there. So what does that mean? Like, take a look at what you're doing in your center, in your agency, in your facilities that can be automated. What things can people do, or do people do every day that you could be automating, or at the very least digitizing, right? Reception, access management, registration paperwork, attendance tracking, equipment management, rentals, staff scheduling, new member enrollment. These are all things that can be fully digitized these days. Accounting, security, marketing, all have areas that you can digitize, automate. Do a walkthrough with one of your team. Follow them on their daily tasks. See what you could take off their plate and digitize and give the right tools to make things more efficient. Lifeguards, maintenance teams, they're going to have due diligence that can be digitized. It's fantastic. You can have tons of things that can be made easier if you just take a look. I'm not here to sell more computers. Like, that's not my job. Not computers good, paper's bad. But I think it's worthwhile to like step into the business and pay attention to these positions and what you can help automate. Fresh eyes and everything. And then my favorite thing about this, we've talked about happiness and productivity at the employee level. We've talked about productivity. My favorite thing about, especially working in an industry like this doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a leaner, more efficient workforce. It means you can do so much more with the staff that you have. They can be focused on meaningful interactions with your community, having like positive, connected customer experiences rather than doing busy work. They can provide an outstanding service and make your facility, your agency, a joy to visit, as well as a joy to work in. So I think it's wins all around. Seb?
Yeah, I think as a team manager, your client are internal employees, your internal customers. These are the ones you need to focus on. And one of the biggest thing that I've seen, and I've been in sales for almost 20 years, it's resistance to change. And that doesn't usually come from the employees. It always comes from top management or management. And it's a mindset that needs to change in some ways. Why? Because today, your Gen Zs, your 18 to 25, use 1,000 different ways to communicate. I'm seeing in the chat here a lot of, you got TikTok, you got Instagram, you've got WhatsApp, you've got so many different ways of communicating. And every time there's something new, the adoption rate is really big. Instagram or Meta launched Threads. The adoption rate was incredible right away to compare to X or Twitter as it was before. So the first thing that I think that needs to change in the mindset is at the executive and the manager level to say, oh, the employees are not going to like another change. Technology makes them more efficient. Access to information is key. Automating processes. These are ways to improve your daily activities all the time. It is not replacing a human being by a robot. It really is enabling a person to maximize their work so that they can focus on what they have to do and automate everything in the back end. So things happen very quickly. Access to anything you need, including access to information. And you're right, people don't have two phones anymore. I'm in the old school. I think I'm older than you because I worked at BlackBerry for a while. So that just ages me.
Remember BlackBerries?
Yeah, I don't know. Anybody in the chat remember BlackBerries? I think it died obviously a long time ago, but yeah. So
BBM.
BlackBerry, yeah, exactly, BBM,
No,
and
I've
that's
heard it's a good movie. I'm gonna. It's already gone up the chat, but someone said it's a good movie, and I want to watch it.
it is a really good movie, and for having worked there, it's very realistic.
Oh, nice.
That being said, back then you needed to have a BlackBerry to communicate. So everybody had a normal phone, and then the BlackBerry became this all-in-one. Today,
Mm,
everybody has just one product,
yeah.
and with the technology, with software as a service, with everything that is um, available on the cloud, there is so much access to information that can be provided. So my recommendation to the attendees today is don't limit yourself because you think change management is going to be harsh. It actually, the adoption rate is really quick, and you're finding users adopting new technologies and making their life a lot easier. So my biggest advice is don't worry so much about change management, especially with Gen Zs, 1825s, like they adapt extremely quickly to
Mm,
new environment.
yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, the change management is always going to be a thing, but like it's not going to be as bad as people think, I think. And in our final section, um, so this is right up your street, huh? Flexible work. So again, I feel like there's a lot of buzzwords around this, like gig economy, new normal, like all this like changing paradigms of employment after the pandemic. I acknowledge that many positions for Parks and Rec, especially those related to safety, are not going to be suitable for flexible arrangements. But I think there's plenty of positions, coaching, PTs, support staff. Flexible work can be something that you can consider, and I think the data shows why. So what does flexible work mean to you, Seb? Here's the data from Gen Z, but as someone who definitely knows this area, what's it mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's a necessity today. The typical 9 to 5 doesn't exist. It just, it's broadened up, and we're providing access to people, to facilities, to different shops, to different things, extending hours all the time. I think this, subject really addresses the question, and I hope Steve is still there. Steve Hutton had a question at the beginning in regards of how are you changing the naming convention? It's really tough to say full-time and part-time because what does part-time define? And Steve was asking if we can use permanent part-time, occasional, seasonal, all of these different things and different names still doesn't really define the hours that people want to have. And again, this is why we've really went to, we did a 180 degrees, and then we went as a company to the connotation of shift working.
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, when you have a facility, when you're managing parks and recs, when do you actually need people? These are the shifts you're trying to fill. The advantage of thinking and changing the mindset to shift working really allows people to have flexible times. I can work bulks of 4 hours all across my week, do a decent pay, a decent amount of work, and still have this work-life balance, work-student balance. Or sometimes people like to have different things. I saw one of the comment, and I'm sorry, just flew by, but one of the, I see John Volk was saying, I have two phones because I manage 40 staff and I need to turn it off and unplug. It's the same thing for the employees. They love to come in and get out and change their mindset. And sometimes some people are going to work as a lifeguard and then as a barista and have different things because, especially at an early stage, a lot of people are still trying to define what they want to do in their career.
mm.
That's super important.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people talking about remote work, right? Like there is this acknowledgement that for a lot of positions, especially in this industry, and honestly, especially in like early career when service is so like service-minded positions are important, remote work might not be totally relevant, maybe. Also, flexible start and end times. There's challenges to overcome there with facility management. Janir, you mentioned about a rec center that needs to be staffed and open 100%. Compressed work week, I think it sounds like Colleen, you have a stretched work week that hopefully you can carve some time in and out. But like, I want to share the next slide because these things, like, they are hard to fit within the Parks and Rec context for sure. But it's important to people, right? It's a great contributor to work-life balance, which you saw as factor number two. And I'm thinking like a lot of, that number one factor, compensation. I feel like a lot of people working in the public sector are going to see that competing on compensation is like, it's really not. It's like difficult to do. But is there any way that you can fit in having some sort of flexible element to employment? And I think it would make people more likely to apply. More on this question of how you can offer flexibility in a minute. Compressed work week seems achievable, I think. Sports officials always looking for opportunities. They look for flexibility in conversation. Yeah, coaches, PTs, people working in all sorts of service stuff, benefits, swim for free, relationship building. Yeah, all these things are important. So how important is having a flexible work schedule to you? This, if we put this in the previous question where we had the 10 factors, would put it at the upper middle of the pack. This would be a 3.34 of a score. So it's kind of important. Would you prioritize a job with flexible work hours over higher pay or other benefits? This is what I'm saying about competing on salary. So yes, like this, I mean, that seems contradictory to other questions where we've asked, like maybe people are feeling quite agreeable, but it seems it's not a significant factor. And people are more likely, you'll get more applicants if you offer some sort of element of this within your postings. So I get that it's difficult, and I get that it's not something that you feel is directly aligned with agency Parks and Rec agency work, but seeing if you can find some element to it and incorporate it into your posts might see some benefits. Sorry, Seb.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to your point, disclose the hours. I'm reading a lot of comments, and I have a 11-year-old little girl that loves gymnastics and all those activities, and everything happens after school. So obviously it's outside of working hours. And at the end of the day, when you are looking to hire somebody, feel free to disclose when do you need them. It is such a, sorry for the word, it's a waste of time sometimes to go through the interview process. You basically need somebody to fill a specific role on the Thursday night, Thursday evening, on the Saturday, and you're basically posting part-time. And by doing that, you might have people that are coming in that have part-time availabilities, but not at the hours that you want. So at the end of the day, everything is about communication. Feel free to disclose as much as possible within regulatory of your state, the ability to say, these are the hours we need someone. It's going to increase your applicant rate, and you're going to maybe stop wasting a bit of time throughout the interview process, because it might be a great person, but if they're not available when you need them, what's the point?
100%. Great, thank you. So my last slide. Any questions? And I already have 2 questions, so that's great. If you have any questions, please drop them in the question and answer function. It will help us keep the chat for the chat and the questions so I can line them up. But I'm going to address the question first from John Broke. It actually aligns to something that Tiffany said. Tiffany said, we're so flexible that our employers feel actually working is optional. And then John asked the question, knowing that flexibility is important to many, how do we hold people accountable for not ghosting their shifts or dropping them last minute without traditional reprimands or consultations? The fear is if you hold them accountable too much, they'll just quit. Seb, I think this is something that you probably dealt with specifically with Evolia.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of this, and this is great because it's absolutely in the core of our backyard. First of all, there is all of the different type of rewards program. At the beginning of the things, thinking about a little bit of a reward, rather than punish somebody that's not showing up, is reward somebody that is showing up. I am sure you have the ability to do some employee reviews, and part of the employee reviews need to be attended. What we're reading here is something that we're seeing everywhere in all sorts of fields of work. How do you get people to show up? That accountability, making them accountable. Having the ability to swap shifts with somebody else is something that we've seen have a massive impact in a lot of our clients, up to 30% reduction of no-shows, because all you're asking them is to be accountable to find somebody that will fill your shift if you're not available. That really is where you're holding the employees accountable. You're not punishing them if they're not showing up. But as a manager, it is hard enough to already create a schedule that makes sense throughout the week. And then after that, manage the influx of information that we're getting from the staff. I can't be there that day. I'm feeling sick. My daughter's sick, blah, 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 and then so on. So the accountability to the employees and what we've done as a business is allow employees through a smart scheduling system to interact and change that. That's one of the ways that we found that it has highly increased the attendance.
Yeah, and I think bringing it back to tools as well, like I can picture people managing an old school schedule that's like pinned up on the wall and like having to swap shifts and stuff being a kind of administrative headache. But if you have a system that allows, like you say, shifts to swap between people and there to be a source of truth within that system, the communication becomes a lot easier, I guess. So I have another question from Kyria Hood. I would be curious to hear about some ideas that would contribute to compensation that aren't raises and bonuses. Our department is fully funded by the city, so we have no flexibility when it comes to monetary compensation. I completely understand and I completely agree that that's a challenge. I think a good thing to do is look what value add you can provide from within your agency, right? So not just the immediate context of that job, but within the whole agency, what can you provide that might be of value to the person applying? The previous study that I did back in like October, November, you may have been on that webinar. People very much want to be more active and do more community-based recreational activities. So if you can give people free memberships to or free access to pools, gyms, allow stuff for their family to come in, that's going to help add value to that total compensation package. And that's going to have the added bonus that if you're bringing people into your org for whom a free swim pass or a free gym membership is valuable, those people are very likely going to align with the values of your customers as well, and you're going to have a lot more positive customer staff interaction there. So it's difficult. It is hard to work within strict confines that I feel you work within, but that's one idea. Obviously, growth and development, whilst not directly linked to compensation, is another important thing. There's flexible work, other ways to offset it. I hope that answers your question, Kyria. Seb, anything to add to that?
On that specific matter, I think it's really a tough one. And to your point, thinking about perks, what are the perks? Sometimes it's actually good to ask the employees themselves. Let's not assume as a manager what they actually enjoy and what they like. Whatever those perks are, sometimes it's having those conversations with the staff. Let's say I want to compensate you on, I want to reward you from all the efforts that you've done and you've shown up on time all the time. What would be a perk that, would be something you'd like? Having those questions, open-ended question is interesting. The other part is one of the question in the chat that I'm seeing from Greg Knapp in regards of always being one person short. It's really tough. I would say though, and there is obviously the concept of labor shortage, but when you think about the overall employees that are available and the hours they're working and people looking for flexibility, sometimes it's not necessarily employee shortage, it's actually shift shortage or time shortage. And this is where we're seeing a lot of, especially within municipalities, sharing of resources within municipalities, where an employee can work a certain location and then there's a board that allows them to say, okay, I have this person that only has 20 hours a week and they're available for 40. Can somebody pick them up? That's always interesting to see if we can have the same person work multiple jobs within the same organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So I've seen no more questions come in. Last call for questions. I'm just going to run through a few. We got one more, Mike. I think this is any suggestions on how we can help with staff being punctual for the start of their shifts? I think the communication part is a huge part here, assuming that like there is a disciplinary process in place. Communication, having a system where everyone knows like the start time, responsibility, etc. And then if all of that doesn't work and you're sure that communication and expectations are as clear as they can be, I would recommend a book called Radical Candor to you. It's about having difficult conversations in the workplace, communicating expectations and the effects that will have on your team. It really has helped me as a people leader to grow and sort of have those conversations around expectations. Any other questions? Bridging the gap between staff with age differences, Carly, there is a webinar that we did back in October, I think. If you got, man, this is the best segue I could have asked for. Wait 1 second, next slide. if you want to learn more about the Parks and Rec profession. You can actually get a copy of this research in ebook form. We're going to put it up in the next couple of days if you want to share it within your org. All our other Parks and Rec webinars with Chris Noons and Tom Bonero and all those people, they did one that was about working with different generations. I think it was back in October. Have a search in that page for that. Thanks for that setup. The book, I'm going to type the name of the book, Radical Candor. I don't know. I would spell it this because I'm British, but I think it's probably spelled like that. I don't know the author off the top of my head. The cover is like bright orange with black writing. But yeah. So you can get that stuff online. A reminder, we're Amelia. We help you offer, manage, and sell activities online. Check us out, visit amelia.com if you want to learn more. And my friend Seb has been here from Evolia. Thank you so much. I've had a wonderful time today. Look out for the recording, and thanks so much for choosing to spend some time with us. Thanks to you too, Seb.
It's been great, Mike. Thank you for having me, and amazing participation and questions.
Yeah,
lovely to see everyone interacting.
Bye-bye.